My name's Jaden Chung. I'm just filming this from my own home studio, but I'm one of the teachers here at Vincent Music, and today I'm going to be giving a lesson about just an introduction to kind of bar chords, or just chords, and how it's kind of transferable from guitar usage to a piano usage. Now, the reason why I say that, with one of the students that I'm teaching, I've given him an arrangement of a Paul Kelly song, How to Make Gravy. And as a lot of you know with Paul Kelly, he's not exactly a classical musician. He's collaborated with some, but he's not a classical musician. At most, he's a kind of Australian folk musician. So, that's just one way of describing his music. But the point being that there's not a lot of kind of baroque classical function. That's not his music. A lot of his music tends to revolve around things like bar chords. Something along those lines, right? Or at least closest to that. Now, one of the things that I find really fascinating, actually, is the kind of in-between of how we can relate these kind of dichotomies, if you will, kind of the difference between how do we get similar sounds from one end to the other. In the arrangement that I did for my student in this Paul Kelly song, that was kind of one of the fine lines that I had to kind of find in between that. So, for instance, the song How to Make Gravy has kind of a lot of traditional elements of a 1980s pop/folk song. Something along those lines, right? Talk briefly about how I arranged it. One was just to use bar chords. Bar chords in guitar would be something using just basically making the whole chord, right? But in piano, obviously, it's a different instrument. So how do we then accommodate for that? By using chords and inversions. And so one of the main things that I'll be teaching today is in relation with some of the chords and inversions of this one. So, in relation with this, let's go back to a little bit more classical basics. We have our C major chord, right? C, E, G. But we know that there's three parts of the chord, right? C, E, and G, right? There's three parts of the chord. C, E, G. And we know that we actually can start any of these combinations, whether it's on the C, our pure tonic chord, or our beginning chord, E, on an inversion of the chord, in this case our first inversion, and then our second inversion on our G. And this is just with the bass hand, that's part of what's called figured bass. But if I were to start doing this with the right hand, changing my inversions, so how I would do this is that I would take my bottom note to the top. So in the case of C, E, G, I would then take my C note to the top. And then we have our first inversion of C. And then if we want to go for our second inversion, we take our bottom note to the top. So going from the E to the E, we have our second inversion. Now in some chords, such as dominant sevenths, there are third inversions, but in our regular chords, because we only have three notes in this one, not including the original root note going from bottom to top, right? We only have the three notes, so we can only invert twice. So we have our root position, our first, and our second position. So, with that way we can actually start having a little bit look about some of our chords now. If we go back to E major, which for context was the original chord of the How to Make Gravy song. So just familiarise ourselves with the key. Now with that E major here, we have similar process to the C major actually. We have the root, first inversion, and second inversion. And the same goes with the bass. if I were to just keep my right hand on the root position. Now, in relation to this particular song, we don't really use the second inversion too much, but the first inversion we definitely do. So if I were to go play the song again. You'd be forgiven for thinking it's a G sharp minor chord because I first was a bit thought by that one as well, but it's actually just the G sharp inversion of the E major chord. So, in relation with the song, we have a few particular key chords. We have our E major, F sharp minor, our E major over G sharp, or otherwise our first inversion E major, F sharp. But then there's kind of just before the first chorus, we have our A major. So we're going from A major back to that G sharp. We'll call the inversion of E. So back to that F sharp again, but leading onto that resolution. We have our dominant chord, which is from E, F sharp, B, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B. Now, in terms of our traditional theory analysis, we would take our 5 chord and we would usually always transition back to the 1. Not always. So, there we have it. We kind of have our main structure of the song. Now, leading back into the how we would actually create these chords. So, in reference with E major, we have E, G sharp, B. First inversion is G sharp, B, E. Second inversion, B, E, G sharp. So, I actually want you to try this at home for those who are kind of watching. And this can apply with any chord, whether it's C, D, E, F, G, A, B. It can apply with any chord, whether it's minor or major. But I'm using E major as the example here. So, let's go for our chord. Just for one hand, for instance. I want us to go for that E, G sharp, B. And then, we imagine taking that thumb, taking that bottom note, moving it to the top. I like to do it kind of like moving my wrist a little bit, but once we play the chord, I like to move my thumb, play the first, and then take it to the pinky with the top. And then play the resulting chord, which is G sharp, B, E. And then we take our bottom note, G sharp, and then take it to the top again, and then we now have B, E, G sharp, and then we take it to the top again. So from the bottom, B to the B, and now we're back where we started. And this should be done with the left hand as well, I'd recommend. So I'm just going up through the inversions. And right there, we're back where we started. And this is a really useful thing I find in terms of learning how to do your inversions as well, because I find a lot of the time when I see a lot of classical pianists, sometimes they only know the inversions through what they look at on the sheet music, and they don't know how to do it intuitively, or at least have it become a little bit more second nature. I find that this exercise is something that really, really helps as well. And this can be done with any of the other chords, whether it's in this song or any other. So if I'm going to B sharp minor, so in this case, our F sharp minor has the F sharp, A natural, and C sharp, right? So this is the process that I do. Same as what I did with the E major. And so we're learning on the chord as well. So this is something that I recommend trying out at home in your own personal practice. And just even just as a general, whether it's to impress your teacher or those... Actually, no, let's be real. Might not. Maybe just to impress your teacher. I was about to say do it for your friends, but it's just like, oh, if they like it, sure. But with that concludes my little lesson on how to make gravy, some of the chord constructions here and there, and how to play some of those inversion chords. Take care, and have a good day.